Men Too discussion is specifically centered around prepubescent boys who have been sexually introduced to activities by females past the age of puberty, its impact and lasting effect on their psychological well-being. The moderators of this podcast are not licensed clinicians. Should any topics discussed today trigger an emotional response, please seek professional guidance with a licensed practitioner. A few months ago, my friend Earl, known as Urban Wall Street, put up an extremely impactful post called Men Too on his Facebook page. Now, when I first saw the post, I was a little bit puzzled. What did Men Too mean? So I called him, and this is the result. Earl?
Tammy Gam, first and foremost, I'm so happy that you're here to be a part of this project with me. Men Too is a relatively new concept, but it's really birthed from experiences in my life, and that's why I entitled it Men Too, the aftermath of childhood sexual trauma. There's a lot of things that happen to young males and young boys, and those conversations don't seem to be as prevalent as when things happen with young ladies.
Okay, stop right here. You say that things happen to males to young boys.
Absolutely.
Like what?
Sexual encounters with older women, molestation, and I know what happened was with males and females, but my particular experience, and the reason I wanted to do this series and hopefully help some other young brothers or just men in general, it was with women. And you know, as a young boy, I'm talking about, put like this, Tammy, I don't remember being a virgin.
Oh.
I don't remember being a virgin.
Okay, so am I to understand you correctly in you're saying that a grown woman, had a sexual encounter with you?
Grown to me at that time.
Okay. Open that up for me.
So, I say I'm a survivor, because there's all types of levels of surviving. And when I think about, childhood sexual abuse and trauma, and I think about how people evolve. Some people become pedophiles, become rapists, or become introverted. There's so many different variables that can impact, how a person can evolve. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily a grown woman, even though I've definitely experienced more than one individual, but when it started, it wasn't necessarily grown to me. I mean, okay. I might have been 7, maybe it started around 3, 4, 5 years old.
Oh my God.
But I remember the person was grown. It was a relative, so I would say maybe they were 8 or 9 years older than myself.
Okay.
But at that time, I was 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old, and I'm engaging in what would be sex.
So essentially, if you're a 5-year-old and there's a 8-year-old involved, that person is now a teenager at the age of 13, roughly.
Right. So it was definitely, it was definitely a teenager,
Okay.
The individual, and so I'm sure, like I said, it started early, and when I mean to stop, but I'm believing the individual was definitely at least 8 or 9 years older than me.
Okay, so let's draw back in time right now.
Okay.
Take me back to your first remembrance of how the encounter began.
How the encounter began. We were talking a little earlier. There was a game that I'm going to say my assailant.
Sure.
My assailant, I use that, right? I used to play, it was called Nurse.
Okay, yeah, we didn't play Nurse
right,
and Doctor.
Nurse and Doctor,
yeah, it was
right?
innocent.
But this was a different type, maybe it wasn't a different type of Nurse and Doctor, but in this particular game, me and my cousin, because it was 2 boys, it was 2 girls. We were older, and our cousins were a little younger.
Okay, hold on, let me back up, let me press pause. So you are approximately 5, 6 years old. Your male cousin is approximately 5, 6 years old.
So we're the same age.
And then you have 2 females
cousins
that are...
Say like 3 and 4.
3 and 4 years old.
No,
okay.
3, 4. And so so that was happening. And then when it was really more memorable, like when it was really the crux of it, I can remember laying on, my grandmother's floor and seeing the tiles behind me, those black and white little square tiles. I remember the moments, the smells and all of that. So I'm gonna say that definitely between the ages of 7 and 9, I know it's heavy because my niece and my cousins were a little bit younger. And how the game would be played, essentially, I was my aunt. I pull no punches, she's going now, rest in peace, if you can, whatever the case may be, right? But it was a game called Nurse. And so my cousins, they used to beat us up. The girls used to beat up the boy cousins. They used to beat us up, beat them up. And essentially they'd knock us out, right? Knock us out or kill us, right? And then my aunt would come and play nurse. I have to take them into the bathroom, operate, and make them well again. Right?
Okay.
And so she would take me carry into the bathroom, because we lay down in the bed like we knocked out. She carries into the bathroom and then lay us down on the floor, and she was always doing top or whatever, and do what she do. And it wasn't just rubbing, it was sex.
Stop. Okay. She lay you on the floor in the bathroom.
Yes.
Those floors were cold.
Absolutely. I told you,
And she was disrobing you?
I mean, just rolled to the point that as long as she get to the area that she needed.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so she was exposing your genitalia.
Absolutely. And we were engaging in sex. Like I can remember, I can still smell the scent of the woman. I can smell it, and it wasn't a one-off. It was like, okay, so say we start playing the game. They knock me out, take early in the bathroom, whatever. They knock my cousin out, take him in, then I come back, then we fight again, knock him out, little boy. So I don't know how. You know, we get older, you might not get as hard as quickly as often. But when you're a little boy, little wind brushed by you, you're getting excited.
Okay.
And so there's a woman and that's being engaged upon. And at the time, you know it's maybe not something that's supposed to be happening, but you don't necessarily know because those conversations may not have happened in the family.
Right.
You're young.
Yes.
You're trusting.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it still felt good.
Right.
Right. And so it had to get to a point where it's like, how it feels can't trump what's actually happening.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So she is essentially letting you lay down on the floor, straddling you, to be very graphic about it.
Sure.
And basically riding you.
Absolutely.
All right. Were you at that point? Did you have any semen come out or any ejaculation come out that you know of?
No, not right. And if it was, I didn't experience an orgasm at that age. I'm like I said, 7 or 8. Definitely 7 or 8 when it was really happening. And then I don't think I was,
Okay.
maybe creating sperm something at the time, whatever it may be. But I had not had an orgasm. But I do remember when I had one, and it was still in the space of a improper encounter.
Okay, so let's take a break right here and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Wow.
got the Greystones and the Hudson Yards, man. Available exclusively at DWSforward.com.
Okay, we're back with Men Too. Of course, I am your host, Tammy Gam, with Urban Wall Street.
And so what I was saying in the segment, unfortunately, my first, orgasm, it wasn't a general situation. It wasn't with a girlfriend. I wasn't older and I experienced something together. It was, again, in a space where it shouldn't have been. And I didn't know what was happening. So maybe I was 7 or 8. And maybe I was just, when you was a kid, you're dry humping or whatever.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, those behaviors, I'm going to call them those lustful behaviors, those really are derive from that experience because you don't know, that it's necessarily a bad thing. And unfortunately, society, even at the childhood level, we talk about sex, and I gotta get mine, and I gotta have an orgasm. And it's this thing like, you want to make a woman have an orgasm, you make a boy. And even with young boys, those conversations still happen. They happen, and maybe with people they're not supposed to be happening with, right?
So let me understand. You took those playful moments
Right.
of nurse play,
Right.
and you continued your childhood life
Absolutely.
the next 3 to 5 years, and then you begin to play with children that are your own peer age, and you're playing what type of games? Dry humping?
We play, Run, Catch, and Kiss, 7 Minutes in Heaven.
What is 7 Minutes in Heaven?
Oh.
That I've never heard of.
I don't know. 7 Minutes in Heaven was Run, Catch, and Kiss. So I remember this game. You run and you chase whoever you like. Everybody runs like tag, but you run and you chase whoever you like. And then if you catch them, you have 7 minutes to do whatever you want to do. That's why it's called 7 Minutes in Heaven. So fondling, kissing, hands in pants, whatever. Now this is not teenage games. These are games I'm playing as an adolescent.
Okay, so you're not even 10.
No, and just full of lust.
And full of lust.
Full of lust.
Okay. And you don't know that it's lust.
No.
You just know that these are the games, and physiologically this is what feels good to my body.
Right. And because the introduction was by a relative. You trust your family. You're not thinking that, as a child, you're not thinking that somebody's going to harm you or put you in a position that will be harmful as you evolve into adulthood.
Okay.
But that's exactly what happens.
Okay, so audience, I need you to understand that putting young children in a position with older relatives that you are not aware of their sexual behaviors with your child is something that will impact them on the long term. We will have more about that discussion in the upcoming episodes. But please, in this moment, hear me. The moments that your child spends with relatives, friends, associates, without your guidance, could lead to situations such as early spending.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm 55 years old, and to be able to sit here and say, wow, what's a virgin? Well, I mean, I know what a virgin is, but what does that feel like? What does that innocence feel like? See, I don't know the innocence of you meet a girl, you're 13, 14, like, wow, I immediately, when I would meet girlfriends, no matter what age, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, I immediately just be supposed to be having sex. Like that's what the girls do. And because it was brought to me, see, I was not the aggressor. I was more it just kind of came to me. So I would just kind of fall back. And being humble, when you're a cute kid in New York City, cute young boy, whatever, you don't have to try as hard to get girls to like you or to get a kiss or to get anything. You know, growing up, everybody's curious. And the persons who have the experience, they kind of may lead, right? And so for me, when I would meet girls or girls were like me, I would automatically think that they wanted to have sex. 9 times out of 10, they did, but that wasn't they liked me as a person. But I didn't see that worth. I just saw, you see me, I'm cute, you want to have sex. Almost like Mr. Price, she's attractive, she's pretty, I want to have sex with her, I don't want to have anything to do with her. So I would never think that a girls genuinely liked the person I was. I just thought they would like the physicality of who I am.
Now, Earl, you and I met at a very crucial time in life.
Yes.
We met at the beginning stages of being at Howard University.
Absolutely.
I venture to say we met freshman week.
Yes.
It was very early on.
Year, definitely
it was definitely my freshman year. It was very early on in my freshman year that you and I met. But I always saw you as this laid back guy. You weren't necessarily pursuing the women. The women were liking you, but you were not an aggressive guy.
Right, and as I was saying, and I attribute that to the fact that I never had to be. See, I wasn't my introduction to sexuality, I was not the aggressor. Okay. I was not the conqueror. I was not the one on the hunt, right?
Yeah.
I was the one hunted. I was the prey.
Yes.
So it came to me. So as I evolved, and I never had conversations with my parents, I never had a birds and the bees conversation with anybody. I didn't have an older brother. I was kind of like an only child, even though I had a younger sibling. Yeah. So everything I learned was just either through what you hear in the hood, society, TV, but it was never conversation. And then because of who the person was, I didn't feel like I would be believed.
How did you know it was sex?
Well, I mean, you know what sex is. You watch TV, growing up in the 70s, you just kind of know. How do we know? I just knew. I knew that some woman was putting my penis in her body. Like,
Okay.
like, ain't too many things it's going to be. I might not have known exactly what it was. I didn't realize. See, I might have thought it was having sex was cool. I didn't know that I was being abused. I didn't know that I was being molested. Because I would tell, like my god brother was one year older than me, so he was the person I told. And I would always tell. So I would have these conversations, right? But it would be with my friends or something like, oh, Earl's sleeping with his aunt, Earl.
Yeah.
And nobody looked at it like, oh my God, that's crazy. It was almost like, oh wow, like he's getting some blessing. Like, but no, that's not what it was supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And as I evolved, it changed. Like you said, at Howard, I wasn't aggressive. So I would see women, oh, they look good. I'm sitting there waiting for them to come holler at me.
Right.
Because a lot of times, even in high school, I never really had to like, oh, girls like you. And the benefit wasn't, oh, this person likes you. Oh, she was cute, she was fine. So it's cool. I would have liked her anyway. I like her too.
Yeah.
But I never had to actually be the pursuer. And so as I evolved, I have not evolved. So at Howard, and there's a couple of people I pursued, but for the most part, I kind of laid back and just chilled.
Okay, so
I did have girlfriends, but and I pursued them to a degree. One I liked, but then when she saw me, she liked me more. So I was able to fall into situations. And when you can fall into situations, I don't think you appreciate as much.
Okay, so we're going to pause right here and we're going to bring it back because I want to go back to the floor because that is something that is...
The floor is where it began and the floor is where it ended.
All right, that's what we'll pick up. The floor is where it begins and ends. So everybody asks me, how did you fall in love with tools? The simple answer is this: I've written a book about it. Check out Amazon with my book, Love Letters to My Toolbox.
You cannot live with your own failure. Where did that get you?
Hi everybody, this is Tammy Gam and we're back with Men Too, and of course I've got Urban Wall Street. We're picking this segment up with On the Floor, where it began and where it ended.
Right, because we was talking earlier off camera and you had said something that kind of led me to this. So on the floor is where it began, right? That's just where I would be taking, whether it's the floor, the bed, sometimes the floor or the bed, where it was convenient, right? But a lot of times on the floor. And that's how it would always occur. And then, but when it finally stopped, I decided to make it stop. Don't ask me what drove me to that. I hadn't had a conversation with anyone.
Okay.
But I can recall the day. I was, at my grandmother's house, and I was sitting on the floor, Indian style, watching TV, and my mom was behind me, and I could hear a zipper slowly, that sound. And so in that moment, I'm 8 or 9, and I'm like, no. I'm deciding in my head, like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I didn't necessarily know how wrong it was, but I knew enough, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
I don't want to do this. I don't want this happening to me anymore.
Right.
And so I recall it like it was yesterday, the person was like, oh, come on, little Earl, let's do it. And I'm like, no, but I'm not looking back. I'm still like a little kid, shaking my leg, looking forward, like no, but standing firm, like I don't want to do it. And come on, just for a little while, just have just a commercial, just for a moment, a little bit. And I just, I could have I just stood, no. Never turning around, you know what I'm saying? But just, no. And then eventually, the show came back on, commercial ended, and it was like, oh, see, we could have, whatever. And I was like, no. And that's all I said. I didn't say like, no, I don't want you to touch me. I didn't yell.
Right.
It was just straight, like no means no.
No means no.
No.
Yeah.
And that was the last time it occurred. I mean, I think I was maybe 9, maybe 10.
Okay.
And that was just me taking back that power.
So do me a favor. Take me back to your grandmother's house, because that's a place of power for you for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
How and why did your grandmother's house become a place of power? Because earlier in our discussions, you said that you were taken to your aunt's place.
But and it's funny, it was actually it's actually my grandmother's home, but my aunt lived there. So
okay.
one grandmother's home was a home of affliction, and the other grandmother's home was a home of healing from the affliction.
Okay,
right?
so now we've got affliction-spaced grandmother's home and healing-spaced grandmother's home.
Right.
This is very important to know, that there's that dichotomy
Mm-hmm.
in how your family's auras are available. Tell me about your grandmother,
Right.
who was the healing space.
So my grandmother was the healing space. We grew up here in Brooklyn, New York, right? 710 Chauncey Street. Shout out to Chauncey Street. And she had my grandmother was a reverend. She was an ordained reverend. So rest in peace, Reverend Thelma Lee Holmes. Rest in peace, Nana. And she had the first story or the first floor of her 3-story brownstone converted into a church.
Oh,
I mean, stained glass windows, on top of the door, the cross at the door through the glass, congregation, pulpit, altar, piano, communion, the whole nine.
Yeah.
First, Mount Carmel AME Zion Church. That was the name. Mount Carmel AME Zion Church. That was the name of the church. And it was downstairs. And so, literally, whenever we would return, from vacations or trips, whatever, because my dad was in the military in England, I would always be at church, Christian camps, and all that. And this one particular time, my grandmother said, she told my mother, she said, it's Deborah. That's my mother's name, Deborah.
Yeah.
She said, every time you return, Early comes right down here and gets in the middle of this circle. I said, he's absorbing all the prayers.
So what circle was this?
So the circle was, my grandmother used to conduct her Bible studies.
Yes.
Bible session, Bible study with her friends, right?
Yes.
Old ladies, so they're sitting in their circle.
Circle of women.
Circle of women, a
All
circle
right.
of women. And I would, come in. Now, I don't remember this. I can remember everything that would happen to me, before I got home on the other side of town. But when I got home, my grandmother said to my mother, I would come in, walk right into their circle, lay down, sprawl eagle on my back, extend my arms and legs out as wide as I could, and just lay there with my eyes closed. Didn't say anything, just lay, and the women would be like, just look at your little grandson, whatever, and then they go on about their business with their Bible study.
Yeah.
And so, in that moment, my grandmother said, he's soaking up all the blessings. Now, they didn't know what's happening at the time, right? But as I'm older and I evolved, and I said, I look at that as me coming and sitting in a circle, a prayer circle, to absorb prayers, was me being cleansed of the demonic energies that had afflicted my spirit and my young spirit. I'm a kid.
Right.
So I don't know necessarily how to handle it. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should say something. I don't want to get in trouble, right? And so who do you turn to? Well, when you don't know who to turn to, God will turn to you if you need it. They say God protects fools and babies, right?
Yes.
So at that time I wasn't a fool, but I was surely a
Definitely.
baby. And so he protected me. So I see the fact that I'm here now today. I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a rapist. I don't like young girls. You got to be grown for me, you know what I'm saying? I don't have the behaviors that some people unfortunately might happen, right? There are other elements.
There are other elements,
like relationships. I've never been married.
Right.
I've never been engaged.
Yes.
Because there's a degree of vulnerability
That you
and
have to
submission
let go
that
of.
you have to let go of.
Yes.
having evolved in a submissive state to a woman, it's like a mental barrier, and I say blockade. It's a mental barrier you have to get over. I have to be humble. I have to recognize that this person genuinely cares for me, not just my flesh.
Yes.
And sometimes it's hard. Now maybe if I was ugly, I had 3 teeth, you know what I'm saying, 1 eye missing, oh, I know she really loves me. But when you're cute, and it's not to be arrogant, but you know what I'm saying, when you're attractive, it's a different type of energies that come your way, and I've seen it, and I want to talk about this because I see it happen with celebrities. I was looking at a video recently of Justin Bieber, and this young man was going through a whole lot of violations from older people, and no one's protecting young boys, you know what I'm saying? We have to either figure out a way to protect ourselves. So I was thankful for the fact that my grandmother's home was my sanctuary. So when I left and I went into the world of wickedness, vile things are going to happen. You can't, but I was thankful that when I came back, I came back into the house of God, and I was cleansed of any impurities, of any impure thoughts as best I could, right? But you evolve with that. But the reality of it is there's a lot of young men, and a lot of grown men, I'm sure, who have experienced what I've experienced.
Oh, yeah.
They still will. I'm sure there's a lot of men who may not have had conversations about it. They may have behaviors or issues in relationships, and they might not know why, right?
Let's do this. Let's call this a pause point.
Okay.
Because you're opening up something for the next round of Men Too. Male sexual abuse and how it impacts men in their future lives. Thanks for joining us today.
Greetings, beautiful people. Earl Christian III, aka Mr. Urban Wall Street here. There's an upcoming series that I've created. I'm hosting and producing with my sister Tammy Gam, the girly shop teacher. It's called Men Too. Unfortunately, in the early part of my life, I was a victim of sexual abuse at the hands of an older woman, but I'm a survivor. But I know there's a lot of other young men and young boys that may have gone through this or still going through it. You're not alone. This is a safe space. It's not about being soft. This is about being hard enough to recognize and address maybe your assailant, maybe an issue, underlining, maybe understand why you might behave the way you do or why you think the way you do. If you're like me, you want to talk about it. If you really want to talk about it, get at us. #Men Too.